What if I told you that music theory is dead simple? I feel strongly that there are actually 3 levels to music theory before you even get into the things that most people associate with the term. See, at the end of the day, music is a language, and music theory is just a way to understand the language. Let me get to level 1. This is like the baseline understanding of music that literally everybody has. Even if you don't play an instrument, there's a high likelihood that you've sung along to your favorite song or tapped on your steering wheel or your desk along to a song because you felt the rhythm, you felt the beat, and it got you moving. You could consider that music theory in a way. And if you think about when we learn language, we all start off as babies, unable to talk, unable to understand the world, but we're surrounded constantly by people talking at us, people talking to us, people just talking near us. If you think about a baby in a social situation, they're just totally surrounded by people talking. The first step to learning any language naturally, when you're growing up, is just by hearing and then repeating and copying what you're hearing around you. You know, we don't teach 3-year-olds grammar and spelling, but they can still communicate pretty well. It is exactly the same with music. The more you listen to music, especially if you're listening to all kinds of different genres, different styles, different artists, a variety of sounds, the more you can start to internalize what makes music work. So even if you don't understand the why or the how or the what of what you're hearing, you still just know that it's making music. There's a rhythm you can tap along to, there's a melody you can sing. You're starting to understand, at least at a basic level, changes, chord changes, hearing the song moving, progressing. You don't even know that it's chords yet, but you can there's like an emotional reaction that you start to get from music just from listening to it. So that's level 1, is just sort of hearing music, learning to listen, learning to feel the music. That in itself is just the absolute baseline of music theory, right? Just listening, hearing, music theory. Level 2 comes into play once you pick up an instrument. Obviously, this is kind of a base YouTube channel I got going on here, but it doesn't matter what instrument you play. The minute you pick up an instrument and start... I gotta turn the amp on. The moment you pick up an instrument and start playing around with it, even if it's just making the most basic sounds. So now instead of just humming or tapping along, if you're a total beginner, you've never played the bass before, if you've heard that song, Seven Nation Army, a bazillion times, it's the same riff over and over again. Start on a note, right? Hear the note. If you've played for a while, you may forget what it was like when you first started, but it is not out of the question for a total beginner. Once they start to figure out the mechanics of playing notes, you'd be surprised how quickly they can start to copy music they've heard. This is especially true for piano, which is why I always try to encourage young beginners, like I'm talking elementary school age, first, second graders. If their parents call me and they're not sure what instrument to start with, I try to steer them towards piano. It's not as glamorous as the guitar or the bass, but there's something about just being able to walk up and go blunk and play a note. It takes way less fine motor skills, way less precision to just get started making sounds. And for a lot of kids, that's just getting their foot in the door. They realize they can use their fingers to play those keys, and if they have a good ear already, if they've been listening to lots of music. I had a student once who came in for his first lesson and played Carol of the Bells, like with the descending bass line, boom, boom, both hands. And here he had learned to play it just by listening to it on the radio. And literally, he named the radio station that he heard it on. So I don't know if he just heard it like once or twice and was able to... Anyway, the amount that our brains can take in musical knowledge just from the get-go is sort of astonishing. And I really feel like, this is anecdotal at best, but I really feel like the more music is surrounding a kid in their formative years, the more likely they are to excel at playing an instrument. It's at least at the beginning. If they had... I don't just mean like listening to the top 40 radio in the car or whatever. I mean, maybe their dad was like a huge metalhead, or their mom was like a diehard classic rock, like Beatles, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, is just constantly surrounded by all this music. Maybe their parents were classically trained musicians, jazz musicians, whatever. If there's some level of music happening when they're growing up in the first few years of their life and they're just surrounded by it, it seems to really give them a leg up. It's like a very clear, like, they just learn everything faster. They start to play by ear almost immediately. It's like a night and day difference. Regardless of your age or musical background, though, you can progress probably a lot more than you think just by picking up an instrument and messing around with it. Granted, if you're younger, if you've listened to tons and tons of music in your life, it'll be easier for you to get started, but by no means is it impossible. At any age, any experience, any musical exposure, whatever. If you pick up a bass today and just start messing around, you'll be surprised where you might end up. You know, for some people, maybe this is all the further they want to go. Just kind of sitting around, plucking the keys on the piano, plucking the strings on their bass, just trying to make noises, trying to make sounds that they hear from their favorite songs. But if you want to go a step further, which is level 3, this level 3, I think, only exists on instruments that have frets, because I can't really think of any other instruments where you can read tabs or something equivalent that shows you what to play without actually needing to learn the note names. Because I think learning the note names is like level 1 of what most of us think of music theory. But tabs is still technically music theory because it's a way of communicating the music, a way of understanding what you're playing. And I can sit here and teach you that Seven Nation Army that I played. I say we're going to do an E. I don't even have to say E. I'm just going to say 7th fret on the A string to the 10th fret, back to the 7th fret, then the 5th fret, 3rd fret, 2nd fret. And then in terms of rhythm, that's the easiest thing to learn by listening, is rhythms. Ba, da, 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 da. That's honestly not even that simple of a rhythm, but if you've heard that song enough, that song is so ingrained into like just the general knowledge of music that it's easy to repeat because you've heard it so much. And that goes for learning any songs, and that comes back to level 1, where if you've listened to a lot of music and you start trying to play these songs you've learned, you can look at the tabs, you hear that starting note and the next note, and you can start put it together because you know the song so well. If you don't know the song, or you don't have a teacher to show you, that's where the limitation of tabs sort of comes in, because it's, unless you can read the rhythms that are included with the tabs, it's hard to get a sense for how the song actually goes because you're just seeing a sequence of numbers to play. Now, the other thing that happens in this level 3 when it comes to basic guitar or other fretted instruments is you start to learn shapes and patterns, like the pentatonic scale. Like, I can teach you that pattern, right? Start on any fret. Here, I'll start on this 3rd fret of the A string, move up 2, then play 2 frets again, then go to the next string, back to the 5th fret, then 7th fret, then 5th fret. So we got 3, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. You can do that pattern starting anywhere on the E string or the A string. The major scale obviously there's a lot of technique stuff going on here already with the right hand and the left hand, but those are all things you can start to pick up relatively quickly without even having to know even the names of the strings. You should probably know those, though, if you want to play in tune. But if you want to go to a step further, which would probably be level 1 of the traditional concept of music theory, you have to start learning note names. You got to start learning that this isn't just the 3rd fret on the E string, that's a G. This isn't just the 5th fret on the A string, that's a D. Getting into real music theory is like a whole nother video in and of itself. My question for you is, what level do you think you're at? Are you just tapping along in your car, singing along in the shower? Are you maybe playing an instrument, but you're just kind of trying to feel it out? You got no concept of what you're doing. You're just sitting there in your bedroom plucking away. Or you reading tabs, chords, or you even beyond these 3 levels and into real music theory. Yeah, let me know in the comments where you're at, where you want to be. Maybe you should go watch my basic music theory video, where I talk about some important things you should know when you're trying to learn music theory on the bass. Just go watch my basic bass theory to move beyond these 3 underlying levels and get to real music theory.